Through the Forest Farm is a diversified, community-supported agriculture farm.
We grow a variety of fruits, vegetables, and cut flowers on our farm. We also have a community-supported agriculture, or CSA, program where members of the community come weekly to pick up a box of produce, whatever we have in season at the time.
Farming has been a big part of both of our lives for a long time before we launched Through the Forest Farm, but we are really excited and had dreamed for many years of starting our own farm, which we did when we launched Through the Forest.
The Office of Agriculture has been super helpful in our farming journey. We're pretty new, we're also relatively new to the area, and so it's been really helpful getting advice from the Office of Agriculture on what's going on in terms of the local agriculture scene, connecting us with various farmers in the area, as well as alerting us to potential grants and funding. This year we received the Howard County Economic Development Authority Enhanced Agriculture Grant. We utilized that funding to renovate a wash pack facility, which is used after we harvest the produce, and we're able to clean the produce, wash any dirt, debris off of the produce and prepare it for the CSA boxes. I always have a lot of ideas on how we could improve the farm, especially in the off-season. So the timing of the grant application is really good because it kind of kicks off as we're going into winter. And so I start thinking about the past season, what sort of improvements we can make. The application was really easy and seamless. It just kind of followed that thought process, getting it down on paper. I was also able to kind of run some ideas by the staff there to get feedback on what sort of projects would be viable.
If you are just getting started farming or maybe have a few years under your belt, I would say go for it. You should definitely apply for this grant and think big. The Office of Ag is there to support you. We came to them with a few different ideas when we were thinking about how to leverage this funding so it could best support our farm, and they were open to talking through ideas with us, so you are not alone in this grant process, even though it can sometimes seem intimidating, but think big.
My name is James Zoller, and I am the administrator with the Office of Agriculture, and I am here with Kathy Johnson, who is a Director of Agricultural Business Development from Howard County Economic Development. And we're here to go over some exciting grant opportunities. Howard County is offering grant opportunities to preserve, support, and grow agriculture within the county. These grants are designated to encourage expansion, diversification, sustainability, and education in agriculture by supporting research, programming, and production improvements. The program is funded through the Agricultural Preservation Fund and administered by the Howard County Economic Development Authority in cooperation with the Howard County Office of Agriculture. Through this application, you may apply for one or both grants, labor excluded. If you are applying for both grants, you will be evaluated for each grant, but can only be awarded one grant. An organization or farm can only receive one grant per year. Funding may support programming, research, capital investments, production, buildings, fixtures, processing facilities, or other eligible activities that facilitate the expansion, sustainability, and/or education of Howard County agriculture. So I'm going to pass it off to Kathy here. So Kathy, explain a little bit about what these grants are and the history of them.
So we've been giving grants out for about 15 years with Howard County. We started with one $5,000 grant, and over the years it's grown. The Aggie grant, or Agriculture Grant for Innovation, is up to $20,000 per person with a total of $100,000 in grant money. And the Enhanced Agriculture Grant, which is our newest one, you can apply for up to $250,000 with a total of $500,000 in the funds.
That's great. So what we're going to do today for everybody that's watching is we're actually going to go through the grant application, And one really neat announcement we have this year is we've actually combined the grant applications. So hopefully it's going to make it easier for our farmers here to apply for this grant. It is a competitive grant. So what our goal here today is to go through every piece of this grant so that you understand it when you're filling out this grant application and can have the most competitive application that you can have. So Kathy, what are the eligible applicants? We have 2 grants, and obviously they can apply on one application.
Right. The Enhanced Agriculture Grant is open to individuals, operations, and or organizations, provided the programs or projects they are applying for grant funds will positively impact Howard County agriculture as to a whole or their individual farms' large-scale project. The Agriculture Grant for Innovation and Expansion must be an agriculture producer or processor, including crop and livestock producers, seafood processors, agriculture cooperatives, or primary, secondary timber product processors.
Perfect. So it sounds like the Enhanced Agriculture Grant really is open to anyone that is going to impact agriculture here in Howard County. And the innovation, the Aggie, like we like to call it, you may hear us refer to that, that's really just for farmers.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So our funding details, I know they're both different funding. Can you explain the different funding and how they're reimbursed?
So the Aggie is reimbursed after you've spent all the money and turn in all the receipts. Then you can get your reimbursement for that program. And the Enhanced Agriculture Grant is actually, you get a portion, 20% upfront for your project, and then as you turn in your receipts, you will get reimbursed for those grant funds as well.
That makes sense. So they're really both reimbursement grants,
Yes.
Except the Enhanced Agriculture Grant, you get 20% up front. But I think one thing we should mention on that is, even though you're getting that 20% up front, so say you get $20,000, you're still responsible to supply EDA with the receipts up to that $20,000.
Absolutely.
Got
We
it.
have to have those receipts to make sure that if we're audited on any of this stuff, that we're covered ourselves and as well as the farms.
That's great. That's great. So applications and deadlines. We're combining both grants. Are we have the same deadlines now?
Yes. The deadline is February 20th, 2026 by 11:59 p.m. If you're 2 seconds late, then you won't be eligible. So make sure you get those grants in as early on that day as possible, if not before.
So and we're gonna it says I think we're gonna announce awards March 10th, 2026 for this grant round, and they have how long to spend the money?
They have till July 31st, 2027 to spend that money. We have to have all your receipts and your requests for reimbursement by that day.
EDA is really good in the Office of Ag. We work hand in hand on this grant. It is an economic development grant, so the Office of Ag just helps with some administrative help and marketing. But we can always, if you have any questions when you're reimbursing, you can call either one of us and make sure that you're in compliance.
And just remember, the process can take a little bit of time depending on how busy they are in that office.
Definitely. And so this is a very competitive grant, guys. So this grant application has been combined. So a lot of the questions maybe that we had for the Aggie last year or the Enhanced Agricultural Grant now are going to be the same. So it's going to be one, hopefully that's going to make it easier for you. And review and scoring, we'll go over that, Kathy. Explain, I know there's 200 points and we're going to go over the scoring, but explain a little bit how these are judged.
So we actually bring in a committee. James and I do not judge the grants at all. We are here to answer questions of the committee, but it's a non-biased committee, and no one who has applied for the grant can be on that committee to judge. We usually bring somebody in from Extension, somebody from the county, and maybe someone who has farm experience but doesn't own a farm to judge the grants. So there's usually 3 to 5 people on the panel that judge the grants.
So I think that's really important. What Kathy just said there is we don't judge the grants. What does that mean? You can ask for help from us.
Yep.
So that's important. Now, if you're going to ask for help for us, don't ask for help 2 days before it's due, because there is so many applicants we have that you certainly can do that, but the odds of you getting a great response and us to really review it with you are really limited at that stage. So the next page that you'll see on the grant application is questions and submissions. And I'm going to say this is really, really important. You can email Kathy, you can email me, but don't email the applications or any supporting documentation, anything to do with the grant itself in the sense of I'm applying or money. We want you to send that to aggrants@howardcountymd.gov. If you want advice on your application, that's when you email us. But don't email us your receipts. Don't email us, hey, I'm looking into this payment. Of course, you certainly can. But if you want a quicker response and more thorough response, we ask that you send all those to the aggrants@howardcountymd.gov. We both monitor it, but that way if I'm out or Kathy's out, you're still going to be taken care of. So that's really important. As far as a grant scoring, I don't know if we're going to go over, this is self-explanatory.
But it is a total of 200 points plus the 10 points if you're a first-time applicant.
Yes, and I think one thing to keep in mind, so these points are important for you to look at the weight of what the judges will look at. We're going to go through all the questions, so that's really, and I believe on each of them might even say what the points are, but keep this in mind. One thing to keep in mind is if you turn it in and it's a blank on any of these things, we're not going to accept it. There's just too many applicants. So even if you make an attempt at all the questions, fill out everything on here, even if you're not sure, because then the judges might give you 5 points, but if it's blank, they might even give you 0 points. But if it's blank, it's not going to be accepted at all. So I think it's really important you fill everything out.
And again, call us ahead of time, set up an appointment with us, and we can help you answer the questions if you're having challenges or struggles. That's what we're here for. We don't judge it, so we can help you.
Absolutely. So declarations, this is the business end of this application. It's really more legal. So as the business or any top management personnel management personnel a party to any claim or lawsuit, we don't really need to go through any of these. Right. This is just stuff that we legally or EDA needs legally on this application. Yes. Pretty simple. Check them all, but again, you have to fill it out. So this is important. The next question is if you're applying for both grants.
You can just check one box for the EAG or one box for the Aggie, or you can check both boxes.
So one thing that's really important is if you're checking both, remember you have to be a farm to get the Aggie. So if you're an organization, you can't check the Aggie grant. Also, you have to look at, there's a max award of $20,000 on the Aggie, and there's a max award of $250,000 for the Enhanced Agriculture Grant. I think we should mention, Kathy, so it says max $250,000, but what do you think the average is?
The average for your grants, I would say, is probably more around $30,000 to $70,000, and mine run pretty much close to that $20,000. Sometimes we have applications that ask for less, and we fund them, but we try to stick it around the $20,000 mark. And if we have applicants that ask for less, then we can give somebody else a little more money.
That makes sense. So, and you know, we did talk about, Kathy said, you may have heard her say, the EAG historically, or the Aggie historically has been an economic development. The EAG at one point, we managed it, but I want to make clear, that's why she said the EAG is the Office of Ag. It's really all EDA. We managed the EAG prior a little more intensively, but now it's always gone through economic development. Yeah. I say that just because to clarify that.
Yeah, it's always going to be run through economic development for payment as well as for processing.
Absolutely, great. So now it's application organization farm. We have the authorized organization farm representative. So we have the farm, and then we have the project coordinator. Let's talk about a little bit of they could be the same person, right, Kathy?
They can be the same person, absolutely. Especially on the farms, that's generally the case, that it's the same person.
Okay, but then again, guys, if you have a farm representative and then you have somebody on the farm that's another worker that'll be organizing this project, they might be different, but they can be the same as well. Project title, I'm going to chime in on this one. Super important. Your project title, don't make it vague. Make it exactly whatever you're applying for. So if you give an example, if you're applying for cold storage, project title should be, you can say your farm name, cold storage unit. Make it specific to what, as much as you can, to what funds you're requesting. It makes it a stronger application.
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
It does. And easier for our judges to look at and to know what they're looking at.
Yes. Funds request. Now, this is a little more complicated because we have two different grants that you're going to request funds from.
Right.
So you have the one that's the EAG, 250, the Aggie, 20,000. So if you're applying for both, it's simple if you're applying for one. You can put in there the EAG request. If you're doing the Enhanced Agriculture Grant, you might put 100,000 in there, and I'll use this as an example. If you're doing a request for the Aggie, remember, you can't request $100,000 because its max is 20. So you can only do as much as 20. So you got to keep that in mind. One other thing that we should keep in mind, because it's so competitive, you could apply for both grants, but you're not going to get both grants.
No.
You're only going to get one. So the judging panel will do its best to
Yes.
spread it around. But so if you get the AG for 100,000, that's all you're going to get. You can't combine grants. That's really important. Let's talk about the minimum amounts of funds that the grantee can accept for the project to be viable. Kathy, what do we mean by viable? What do we mean by this?
What is the smallest amount you need to be able to do at least part of the project or get it started? You may not be able to finish it, but it will at least help you get started on it. And then maybe that'll give you more time to raise other funds that you need to finalize it. But be realistic about what you need, because if that's not a realistic number and then you can't finish the project, then it's not good for either one of us. So make sure you're realistic about your numbers and what you need for the project.
Yeah, and that's a good point, because we want to give, obviously, if we award a grant to somebody and then they can't do it, first off, we want to know that immediately if there's a problem, because we could reallocate those funds. But you remember, you're taking away from another farm that could have potentially used and gotten the grant. When you put those minimums in, I think we should mention, so the Aggie's $20,000. So if you're doing an EAG and you say you need $100,000 minimal to get the project going, your Aggie, that wouldn't make sense. You can't put $100,000. So I guess what I'm saying is, if you're doing the EAG and the Aggie, you better be accepting that your minimum is going to be $20,000. Yeah. So I hope that's clear. And again, you can always call Kathy and I to clarify.
And you don't have to max out the numbers. Look at your numbers and be realistic. Again, if you can only need $10,000, then that's what you apply for. And your chances of possibly getting the money that way is probably a little better, because then we can award more grants to other people as well.
I think that's a great point. We have seen in the past, we don't know how the judges are going to score things. I mean, they are all independent. However, we have seen in the past where people that are really realistic, and maybe they have, like, say they only need $5,000 to get something going, they may be looked at a little more favorably. Yes. Because perhaps we have $5,000 left to give, and it works out that we can accommodate them. So I think that's really important. Total project costs, that's relatively self-explanatory, I would say.
And again, be real with your numbers. Get quotes. Look at different options before you start the project.
And I think also, don't overlook, because it is good, and whenever you're filling out an application for a grant, you want to be realistic, but also don't forget about all the hours and time that you put into it. There's a lot of other things, like, for instance, there might be dirt work around where you're putting your cold storage, for example. So just make sure to think it all through. I know you need money for a certain portion of it, but remember, there's lots of other stuff that goes into that. We talked to provide a brief description and history of the farm organization, include details and history of your operation and organization, and the experience of the management team that will lead to the success implementation of the project you are applying for the grant funding. Kathy, you want to talk a little bit about that?
So that's just to give us a little background on how long the farm's been running, how much experience you have in farming, and what you know about the project that you're going to do. Because if you don't have any knowledge of how to work it, or you've never done anything like this before, that could affect you getting the grant, because there may be that concern of, do you have enough support and knowledge to make it work?
Yes, and I think with any of these questions, whenever I know personally I'm filling out a grant, go through each question that's in here. So it says a brief history of the farm. So I would make sure I have a brief history of when the farm began, how it was organized, what it historically has been. Details and history of your operation, we covered that. Experience, I think, is important, but also if you are reaching out to Extension,
Yes.
or anyone else, and there's a spot on the application for it, but I think I would mention that as well in this section.
Yep. Anything that adds to what we're doing, because if we're going through a lot of applications, we want to find something that really stands out to us and shows that you have the team network behind you to help you get this project done.
I think that's another great point. I know when looking at these, in the past when the judges have been looking at these applications, they really look at, is it a realistic, so is this a realistic project? And has there been really thought put into what they're doing? So if it's disjointed and they don't think it's well thought out, they get concerned that it's not a real project that you really are taking seriously. So that's important. So applicant entry type, I don't even know if we need to go over this. This is
more for the EAG if it's outside of the farming community. Most of the others would be agriculture business or cooperative. So that would be where that would fall.
Yeah, that's a good point. So really, but check, like we said, check everything else, every box, make sure every answer is answered, or question is answered rather. Project activity category and type. I would think this is, again, pretty self-explanatory. You can be more than one of these things.
Yes.
So it's not like you're just one, or you could be several of these items. And this is just really this isn't so much judged as it's information for us.
Right. And you could be like a value-added food production and a infrastructure. Maybe you don't have something that you need for that, so it could be both of those.
Yes, that makes sense. Kathy, why don't you go over employee data, because I know that's something you guys track.
Yes, so we want to know the number of current full-time jobs that are on the operation, and you need to include yourself as well, not just your employees, but make sure you include yourself or any partners that you have. The number of part-time jobs, the number of new full-time jobs projected in 36 months of receiving this application, receiving this grant, and the number of part-time jobs projected within 36 months that will be increased because you received this money and got the project done.
Yeah, and I would do always your best guess to this. Some of those are hard questions, but it's really important that economic development has that, because that's important for them to be able to track. Agricultural impact. This was a question really on the enhanced agricultural grant that is now obviously on the combined grant. So it says, please indicate the estimated number of Howard County farms your project will impact. So this goes actually for the Aggie or the enhanced agricultural grant, the EAG. And you can check one farm. If you check multiple farms, indicate below the number of farms directly impacted by the project. So if they're Howard County farms, we want you to tell us the exact number of them. So if it's 4, 5, and again, we want you to be realistic. And then multiple Maryland farms. This is very important for the enhanced agricultural grant.
Yes, it
because
is.
the judges really want to see it's affecting more than one farm on a higher dollar amount. If you've indicated that, it's multiple Howard County or Maryland farms that'll be positively impacted, we want a list of those farms and name and location. If the project affects a certain segment of agricultural industry, say it's not a specific farm, but here's a you say it was a, trying to think of a good example, maybe a meat processor, although that's even vaguer, but you might say all protein farmers in Howard County in Maryland. That's okay. It's self-explanatory. If you are looking at getting, a piece of equipment that several farms are going to share, list those farms. So I think that kind of explains it. Also, if you have farms listed here, to make your application strong, it's recommended you have a letter of support from each of the farms.
Absolutely, that makes your application stronger.
Yes, and it lets us know also that, we're not necessarily following up with all these farms, but we have run across farms that say, yeah, I was on a list, but I really didn't ever talk to that farm about it. And it probably would have benefited or could have benefited that farm, but it's good that these farms have a little bit of say and know that you're listing them on their grant. Where are we? We're on 12.
We're 12, and this one's a big one because we do have limited funding and each year, and if you've already gotten a grant, it could affect what we look at, but we still want you to apply because it doesn't mean that you won't get one if you've gotten one from somewhere else. It just shows us that you're looking at different partners to help you, especially on the larger projects that you're looking at doing.
You're on a roll, Kathy, so let's get you on the next question. Number 13, will this project be completed regardless of grant funding?
Yeah, that's another big question. How connected are you to this project? What is your goal to get it done? We want to make sure that you're going to do the follow through no matter what. If it's that important to you, then it's important to us. So please let us know what the right answer is for this. If it's not something that you'll do right away, maybe you're one who can wait and we can try again next year.
That's right. That's right. I mean, you can apply again for the same thing the next year if you don't get it. Now, you obviously can't, remember you have to spend the money you can't spend it this year and apply for it next year. That's something that we should touch on. So like if you do a project right now and then apply for it in February and you've already paid for it, you're not going to receive grant fundings for that.
Right.
Executive summary, we're on a big one. This is in 250 words or less. This is a brief description, of the project's purpose, activities to be performed, expected outcomes, intended beneficiaries, and any other pertinent information.
And this is done so that we know how it's going to affect your farm and how it's going to help you grow your business.
Yes, and I would do what I stated before, go through each one and just hit each topic briefly, because that way you know you've answered the question thoroughly. Okay, we're on to impact summary.
So in 500 words or less, describe the project's impact on Howard County's agriculture or your individual operation. This should include describing the specific issues, problems, or needs this project is addressing and how the project will impact the agriculture operations, if applicable. Any grant that you get will have some kind of impact on your farming operation. It's either allows you to get a project done or you're looking towards the next couple years down the lane of how you're going to do your farming operation and how you can make it better. So it will impact it.
Yes, and I think this is important to explain. Hey, for instance, if you're getting some type of piece of equipment that's going to make your operation be able to run more efficiently or with less people, and the problem is you can't get labor, those are the things that you should state. It's going to make you more sustainable. And I think it's important that you really take this impact summary and relate it back to your farm or back to your project, to why it's so important and why it's gonna really make a difference for your operation or farm. All right, now we're on to situation analysis. Now this is kind of a new question, I think, or reworded. Right. In 500 words or less, describe the current market or programs that exist that are related to your project. If your project is unique to Howard County, explain how the program is innovative.
So what makes you different? What makes this project different? How can we give you extra bonus points because this is unique to you and what you're doing here in the county?
Yes, and you know, another thing that we want to see in this, or what I think the judges will want to see, is that you understand the current market and programs that are there. It doesn't necessarily have to be different than someone else's. So if another county is operating and has a program that you want to do here in Howard County, and this is more on a programmatic level, that's okay. But we want to know you talked to them or you researched it to make sure that you understand how are they successful and how can your program be successful.
And how is it new to you?
Yes, yes. And then in your farm too. So the farm, if there's a market, say you want to get into goat, you want to expand your goat operation. We want to make sure you understand that you're going to expand it, but you also realize there's a market that's going to could sustain the project you're doing. So it's kind of different if you're a farm.
It is.
Or you're a nonprofit, but I think it's in the same sense, we're asking for the same thing, just in a different take or different look. So now we're on to financial analysis. In 500 words or less, describe the project's cost to implement, ongoing costs of the project, and then the financial impact to the operation or organization. Include addendums, so quotes pertaining to the project. It's recommended you include spreadsheets, financials, to support your financial analysis as addendums. If you do include addendums, please reference at the bottom of your analysis. So Kathy, why don't you explain a little of that?
So again, this is to help us know that you are financially looking at every aspect of this project and how it will benefit you and your operation or your program. So just give us what you have. I know with the farms, sometimes they don't have all the financial addendums and things together, but if you can get quotes, if you know what the costs are and be more realistic about those costs, it makes a difference again on you getting these projects.
And that's a great point. So I think one thing farms should keep in mind, we're not asking you to do a financial for your whole farming operation, because that's a daunting task. Not that you shouldn't have that, but we all know in reality that can be a pretty hard thing to get your hands around. What we would like, and we'll go back to the goat example, if you're going to build a facility for goats, or you're going to have, that's what you're asking for, you want to have, in your quotes, the cost to do your building, and all the costs associated with your project, along with quotes, not just this is the cost. So get Morton's Building, I'm going to just pull out a quote from them, and a quote for the equipment you need from there. And that all you'll list down below, you'll say see addendums at the bottom, and you can reference the quotes and things like that. And that'll just let people know that they need to look in the addendums for that information. The other thing that really is important is, so now we know the cost in your financials. We also want to know, you're planning, if you're going to sell 10 goats the first year, you're expecting this kind of income. And then lastly, I would say is don't just do that 1 year. When we say we want to see the ongoing cost, we want to see multiple years. And, if you were an organization, it's going to be a little different. You're going to still have, this is what the project costs you, but you might have, next year, we're looking to get funding from these sources. So it might not be from sales, it might be from grants, it might be just from maybe you do charge for the program. But I think that explains it. Is there anything I'm missing there, Kathy?
I don't think so.
Yeah, and that's important. I think we've seen a lot of applicants that have either had way too much information that wasn't, so they had a whole financial, didn't really apply to the project they were doing. And that's not helpful for us either. So I think it has to be kind of targeted.
And that's the same for the next section, the implementation summary. We want details. What is the timeline of your project? When will things happen for it? And give us those details. Yes, we know that can change a little bit left or right depending on when you're notified on the grant and how the process goes, or maybe the equipment is delayed or the building is delayed by the contractor, but have a rough idea of how that timeline will go so that you get the grant project done in time to get reimbursed for it.
Yeah, and I think this is more on a timeline. It does say in here cost of implementation in quotes. So really you might have that. If you have an addendum in the first financial section with that, you don't need to, you can just say see the financials, and that's okay. I think we have that double because it's so important that we have those quotes. So moving on, so you guys, we're getting through the application, and hopefully this is going to be an easier application than what you've done in the past. So we're at outcome summary. Please list the outcomes, performance measures you will be tracking to evaluate the effectiveness of your project. If awarded the grant, the Howard County Economic Development Authority requires annual performance measures a year after the completion date of the project, and economic development may add performance measures to your project prior to acceptance of the grants. So Kathy, why don't you start a little explaining that?
So that could be how this project might increase your revenue on your crop yield, or reduce labor, how you can get a better production out of your crop, or your cattle, rate of gain on cattle or livestock. So there's a lot of different areas that you can use to measure those projects.
And this is nice because you're getting to select your performance measures. So select something that you can track easily. And you know, if you're a nonprofit doing a program, it might be how many people are enrolled in your program. And that's fine.
Or how many people will benefit from your program.
And you know, the whole reason this annual performance measures a year after completion of the project, this shouldn't be something that scares you guys. We understand life isn't perfect, and maybe your expectations or the outcome of this project isn't really what you thought it would be, and that's okay. But it's also important for economic development to understand like your successes or struggles so that we can also look at ways to support you too.
Right. And as you go through the project, if you run into an issue, James and I are also always here to talk to if you have a problem. Nobody's going to come after you. We just want to make sure that you understand what you're doing and how the project will have an effect to your business.
So yeah, no one will come after you, that's true. But we're on the affidavit, and now this is where we will come after you. No, so the affidavit just basically says everything you put in this application is correct, and it is truthful to your best ability. The other thing it says is if you receive the 20% down, so that's kind of a seed money for the enhanced agricultural grant. And the reason that is there is because they're higher dollar value grants, and a lot of farmers expressed that they needed seed money to start it out. Now remember, you get that 20%, you still have to show the receipts you spent it before you get any more money. However, if you take the 20% down and you don't do the project, or you fail to complete the approved project as described, you do owe it back to us. So that's really important that you keep that in mind. You know, we don't want to give 20% out and you keep it and don't do the project. That's the sense of it.
And again, because we do get a lot of applications for these projects, there's other people that have needs too. So if you're not going to follow through and do the application like we ask or follow through to what you said, then we can give that money to somebody else.
And I think that's another, we've said it before, but if you are awarded the grant, it's okay to tell us, hey, I know I was awarded the grants, things have changed, there's no way I'm going to do the project. That's okay.
Yes.
That's not going to be held against you in further grants.
No.
What will be held against you is if you accept a grant and don't do it and then don't tell us and there's no communication, because then you basically are taking a spot up where we can't reallocate money. So, I mean, I think, you know, being very upfront on everything and honest is the best way to handle it. So the checklist, and this is the final thing, this checklist is not scored, obviously.
Right.
This is for your benefit. So I would go through this checklist to make sure you've done everything. So required for both grants, all applicant fields and applications are complete. We talked about that. Fill everything out. Even if you don't think it's that great, fill it out.
Yeah, don't leave any blanks.
Right. And Kathy, the portion of most recent tax returns showing a Schedule C or F or Form 1120S attached.
Yes, so your last tax return, just give us a copy. You can cross all the pertinent information out as far as social security numbers, that kind of thing, but just give us a Schedule C or F, or so that we know that you're an actual farming operation, or a group that is formed that you're working to do things to help, or government.
So in a Schedule C, you can have that. That just it'll specify you're doing a farming activity. So that should be said too. So affidavit is signed and dated. We talked about that. So we have this as required. Quotes for the project have been included. So they got it, even though it's in there, it's required. We need to see that you know how much it's going to really cost.
Yes, that's something that we haven't really had a lot of before, and we really need to see that.
Recommended for both Aggie and EAG grants, spreadsheet, financials to support your financial analysis. Again, not something that's so broad that it's like showing your whole operation, because that's too hard for the judges to really wade through to see what's going on. Kathy, you can continue on the next one.
Organization charts, graphics, spreadsheets to support the implementation summary. So just show what your business looks like a little bit, so that we know that you are dedicated to your business and to growing it.
So, and this again, these are just recommended ones. If you have equipment, a list of that specific equipment. Pictures, that's the next one. I think that's really important.
Yes.
Pictures are nice for whether it's even a picture of what you want to do. It's not really your farm, or it is your farm. I think it really tells the story and helps.
And then letters of support or recommendation. That's always helpful to any application for a grant. If you can show that you have letters of support from either fellow farming community or neighbors that have worked with you, that always makes a difference. Or even county agencies that you may work with.
Absolutely. It could be really anybody that's advising you. It can be a university, it can be agencies, it can be soil conservation district. I think the more that you're showing that you're serious about this application and you've reached out to people, the better. I think it does make a big difference. So I think we covered it all. Remember, February 20th, 2026, by 11:59, these applications are due. And you can reach out to Kathy and I for any questions.
We'll be happy to help you, and we're looking forward to seeing your applications and what kind of projects you're going to do.
Great. Thank you very much.